The night was quiet, and the small cabin stood alone at the edge of the forest. Inside, a young man named Daniel had just returned from a long day of hard work. His muscles were sore, his back ached, and all he wanted was to wash away the dust and sweat. He filled the wooden bath with warm water, steam rising into the air. For Daniel, this was the one peaceful moment of his day. He leaned back in the bath, closing his eyes. The sound of crickets filled the night. Outside, the moonlight touched the trees. Everything seemed calm, safe, and ordinary. But then, without warning, a soft creak came from the door. Daniel opened his eyes in confusion. Standing in the doorway was a figure. At first, he thought it was a child, but then he noticed her strange, glowing skin. Her eyes were bright like stars, and her hair shimmered as if woven with silver threads. She was small, delicate, and beautiful in an otherworldly way. She looked no older than a teenager, yet her presence carried something ancient. Daniel sat upright, his heart racing. "Who are you? How did you get inside?" he asked. His voice shook with both fear and disbelief. The tiny alien girl stepped closer. Her bare feet made no sound on the wooden floor. She tilted her head, studying him with calm eyes. Then she spoke in a clear voice. "This is my right." Daniel frowned, not sure he heard correctly. "Your right? What do you mean?" The girl walked toward the bath without hesitation. Her movements were graceful, almost like flowing water. She stood beside the steaming tub, looking down at him. "Your water belongs to me now," she said. "It is the law of my people." Daniel's mouth went dry. He had no idea who she was, or why she was claiming such a strange thing. "Listen," he said slowly. "This is my home, my bath. You can't just walk in and say that." But the alien girl did not move away. Her eyes softened, yet calm. Here was determination in them. "Once I have chosen, it cannot be undone. You must share this place with me." Daniel's heart pounded. Was this some kind of trick? A dream? He pinched his arm, but the pain told him this was real. A tiny alien girl was standing in his home, claiming his bath as her right. The silence between them grew heavy. Daniel tried to think. Should he push her out? Should he call for help? Yet something about her fragile frame and trembling hands stopped him. She did not look like an invader. She looked more like someone running from danger. "Why are you here?" Daniel asked, his voice gentler now. The girl's lips trembled. For a moment she looked like she wanted to cry, but instead she straightened her back and said, "Because I have nowhere else to go." Daniel's chest tightened. He had lived alone for years. He knew what loneliness felt like. Still, this was different. A stranger, an alien, was standing in his home with no fear of him. Instead, she was asking for something he did not understand. He shifted in the bath, water rippling around him. "If someone sees you here, I could get into trouble," he said. "You shouldn't be here at all." But the alien girl shook her head. "They cannot take me now," she whispered. "Not after this." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. Her words carried weight, as if some invisible bond had already tied them together. He did not know what rules her people followed, but he understood one thing. From the moment she stepped into his home, his quiet life was no longer his own. The crickets outside sang louder, as if warning him that the night was about to change. Daniel stared at the girl, and she stared back at him. Neither moved, neither spoke. Suspense filled the room like the steam rising from the bath. The unexpected visitor had come, and nothing would ever be the same again. Daniel sat frozen in the warm water, his eyes locked on the strange tiny alien girl standing by his bath. Her silver hair caught the glow of the lantern light. Her skin seemed almost like soft glass, shimmering faintly. She looked fragile, yet her voice carried strength. "You cannot refuse me," she said calmly. "I have chosen this place, and now it is mine as much as yours." Daniel's jaw tightened. He had never heard anything so bold in his life. He had lived in this cabin for years, built most of it with his own hands. No one had ever dared walk in and make such a claim, especially not a girl who looked like she had stepped out of a dream. "This is madness," he whispered. "You don't just walk into a man's home and say it belongs to you." The girl tilted her head, her bright eyes watching him carefully. "I did not say your home," she corrected. "I said the water. This water is sacred now. You shared it. And by law of my people, that means you must also share your life." Daniel's chest tightened. "Share my life? With you? What kind of law is that?" Her expression did not change. The oldest law of my people, she said. Once water is shared, it cannot be undone. You and I are now bound. He felt his stomach turn. Her words carried a strange power, like they were not just spoken, but carved into the air itself. He wanted to laugh, to call it nonsense, yet the way her hands trembled slightly told him this was no joke. She truly believed every word. Daniel rubbed his face, trying to think, why me? Out of all the people in this world, why walk into my bath? The girl's voice softened. Because no one else would let me in. For a moment, the cabin grew silent. The crackling fire was the only sound. Daniel looked at her again, really looked. Beneath the strange glow of her skin and the confidence in her words, he saw something else. Fear. She was afraid, but hiding it behind her boldness. Who is after you? Daniel asked quietly. The girl's eyes flickered toward the door, as if she expected someone to burst in at any moment. The enforcers, she whispered. They want to take me back. They say I broke the law, but I did not. I only followed my right, the right to choose my bond. Daniel's heartbeat quickened. So you chose me? Without asking? Without even knowing me? Her lips curved into the smallest smile. Yes, she said. Because when I looked at you through the window, you were not like the others. You looked tired, but not cruel. You looked alone, but not empty. I knew you would not turn me away. Daniel felt his throat tighten. Her words struck deeper than he expected. He had been alone for years, and hearing someone describe him so clearly was unsettling. Still, he shook his head. You're wrong. I can't protect you. I don't even know what you are. The girl stepped closer, her small hand brushing the edge of the bath. You do not need to know what I am, she whispered. Only that from this night forward, I am yours and you are mine. Daniel swallowed hard. A storm of questions filled his mind. What would happen if he refused her? What if the enforcers she spoke of really came? He wanted to push her away, yet his heart told him something had already changed the moment she stepped into his home. The lantern flickered as a gust of wind slipped through the cracks in the cabin. Daniel turned his head sharply toward the door. He thought he heard a faint sound outside, heavy footsteps in the dirt. His skin prickled. The girl's eyes widened. She whispered urgently, "They are close." Daniel's hand clenched around the edge of the tub. His peaceful night had turned into something else entirely. A stranger, a bold claim, and now unknown enemies waiting outside. The bond he never asked for had already placed him in danger. And then deep down he knew there was no turning back now. The night outside grew darker, and the quiet forest no longer felt safe. Daniel's cabin, once his shield from the world, now seemed fragile. Its wooden walls creaked under the weight of the wind, and every sound carried deeper into the silence. The tiny alien girl stood by the bath, her glowing skin casting faint light across the room. Her eyes flicked toward the window again and again. Daniel could see it. She was afraid, but she tried to hide it. "What do they want from you?" he asked, his voice low. "They want to chain me," she whispered. "They say I have no right to choose, that my kind must obey the old orders. But I refused. I walked away, and now they hunt me." Her words made Daniel's stomach twist. He had seen cruel laws in his own world, rules made to break the weak, rules that gave power only to the strong. Now, hearing her, he realized her story was not so different. He grabbed a towel, stepped out of the bath, and wrapped himself quickly. His eyes went to the lantern, then to the door. "How many are out there?" he asked. "Too many," she whispered. "They do not rest. They will search every shadow until they find me." Daniel clenched his fists. His life had always been simple. He worked, he ate, he slept, and no one cared about him. Now, suddenly, strangers were after his home, his bath, and this strange girl who had claimed him. He didn't know whether to feel angry or protective. Outside, the sound came again, closer this time, the crunch of boots on dirt. Daniel's heart raced. He motioned to the girl. "Stay quiet," he said. "Don't move." The cabin seemed to hold its breath. The wind stopped, the crickets went silent. Then faintly, voices rose in the distance. "They must be near," a deep voice growled. "Search every dwelling. She cannot have gone far." Daniel's skin prickled. He looked at the girl. She was trembling now. Her silver hair fell across her face, hiding her eyes. But when she looked at him, there was one clear message. Please don't let them take me. He moved quickly, pulling on his clothes. His mind raced. He could send her outside, end this trouble before it began. Yet something inside him rebelled at the thought. Her bold claim earlier had angered him, but now, seeing her fear, he knew she was not lying. She truly had nowhere else to go. Daniel blew out the lantern. Darkness swallowed the cabin. Only the girl's faint glow remained. She was like a star in the shadows, too bright to hide. "They'll see you," he whispered sharply. She closed her eyes, and slowly, her glow dimmed, until her skin looked almost normal. Daniel blinked, surprised. She had power even in this small detail. The voices outside grew clearer. Footsteps circled the cabin. A sharp knock rattled the wooden door. "Open up," the voice commanded. "We know she's here." Daniel's chest tightened. He glanced at the girl. She shook her head violently, her lips forming the word, "Please." The knock came again, louder this time. The door shuddered. Daniel stood frozen for a moment, his mind split in two. If he opened the door, he risked everything. If he refused, they might break in. Then, a strange calm settled over him. He had always been alone, invisible to the world. Now, for the first time, someone was asking him for protection. Someone small, fragile, and desperate. He stepped to the door, his voice steady. "There's no one here," he said firmly. "Leave my home." A pause followed. The night hung silent. Then the voice spoke again, low and dangerous. "You cannot hide her forever, human. We will return." The footsteps faded. The whispers moved away. The forest slowly breathed again. Daniel let out a long breath, his hands shaking. He turned back to the girl. She was staring at him with wide eyes, not just in fear, but in wonder. You defied them," she whispered. Daniel sighed, running a hand through his wet hair. "I don't know what I just did," he said, "but I think I've made enemies tonight." The girl nodded slowly. "And I found an ally," she whispered back. For the first time, Daniel realized the truth. Her fate was now tied to his, and whether he liked it or not, the whispers outside would return, louder, stronger, and hungrier. The night stretched long after the voices faded, but Daniel could not rest. He sat by the window, staring at the trees swaying in the wind. His cabin felt smaller now, as if the walls themselves knew danger pressed close. The tiny alien girl sat quietly on the floor, her knees pulled to her chest. Her glow had dimmed again, making her look more human, but her eyes still shone like stars in the darkness. She had not spoken since the hunters left. She only watched Daniel, as if waiting for him to decide what would happen next. At last he said, "They'll come back. You know that, don't you?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, they never stop. Once they mark someone, they follow until the end." Daniel sighed, rubbing his face. "Then why bring this here? Why bring them to my home?" Her lips trembled, but she held his gaze. "Because you are the first one who did not close the door," she whispered. "Others turned me away. Some even tried to give me to the hunters. But you stood in their way." Her words struck something in Daniel, a mix of guilt and pride. He had not meant to protect her. He had only acted in the moment. But now he realized his choice had made him part of her fight. The floorboards creaked suddenly. Daniel's head snapped toward the door. Heavy footsteps moved outside, slower this time, deliberate. The hunters had returned. The girl's breath caught. She crawled closer to him, her small hands gripping his arm. "It's them," she whispered. "The shadows." A deep voice thundered from outside, louder than before. "Human, you are protecting a fugitive of sacred law. Surrender her now, and we will not harm you." Daniel felt his pulse pound in his ears. He looked at the girl. She shook her head fiercely, her silver hair falling across her face. Her fear was clear, but so was her plea. "Don't give me up." He stepped closer to the door, his voice hard. "I told you before, she's not here." This time, laughter answered him, dark and cold. "Do you think we believe your lies?" The voice sneered. "We smell her fear. We feel her glow. Open this door, or we tear it down." Daniel's heart raced. He glanced at the girl. She whispered, "If they take me, I will never return. My people will erase me from memory, as if I never lived." A shiver ran down Daniel's spine. He tightened his fists. He had no weapons, no plan, only a stubborn refusal to let strangers dictate his choices. The door rattled, a strong hand testing its frame. Shadows passed across the window, dark shapes moving with unnatural speed. Daniel's gut twisted. These were not ordinary men. One of the voices hissed, "Step aside, human. This is not your fight." Daniel's voice rose in anger. "It became my fight the moment you brought it to my door." The girl's eyes widened, as if surprised by his defiance. She pressed a hand against his arm, whispering quickly, "If they break through, run with me. Don't let them take me, promise me." Before Daniel could answer, the door shook violently. A loud crack echoed through the cabin as the hunters slammed against it. The wood splintered under their strength. Daniel grabbed a heavy iron poker from beside the fire, his only weapon. His hands shook, but his stance was firm. He would not let them through without resistance. The girl's glow flickered brighter, her fear fueling her light. She whispered something in a language he did not understand. The air around her shimmered for a moment, like heat rising from stone. Another slam came, louder, harder. The door would not last long. Daniel's breath quickened. His peaceful cabin was about to become a battlefield. The hunters were here, their shadows pressed against the fragile wood, and Daniel knew the moment it broke, his life would never be same. The door shuddered with each strike, wood cracking under the weight of the hunters. Daniel gripped the iron poker tightly, his knuckles white. The tiny alien girl pressed closer to him, her glow flickering like a candle in the storm. "Stand back," he whispered, though his voice shook. "If they break through, I'll fight. I don't know if I can win, but I'll try." Her eyes softened at his words. She reached out and touched his wrist. Her hand was small, warm, and trembling. "You don't understand," she whispered. "You don't just protect me. You are already bound to me." Daniel blinked, sweat dripping down his brow. Bound? What does that even mean? She swallowed hard, her silver hair falling over her face. "When I entered your bath, I claimed the right of water. It is the bond of my people, once shared. It ties two lives together. You are now part of me, and I am part of you." Daniel's stomach tightened. He wanted to shout that it was nonsense, but when her hand pressed against his skin, he felt something. An odd warmth pulsing through his arm, as if her heartbeat reached into him. For a moment, his chest felt heavy, then light. It was real. The door cracked again, louder this time. A piece of wood splintered and fell to the floor. The hunters were almost inside. Daniel shook his head, trying to push the strange feeling away. "So, what, we're connected? How does that help us?" The girl's eyes glimmered. "It means if they take me, they take you too. They will not let a bond survive outside their control. If I vanish, you will feel it. You will be hollow. The bond cannot be broken, not even by death." Daniel's breath caught. He stared at her, stunned. This wasn't just about her survival. Somehow, his own life was tied to hers. He had not chosen this, but it had already happened. The hunters slammed the door again. Splinters flew into the room. A dark hand reached through the gap, clawed and strong, searching blindly for the lock. Daniel swung the iron poker with all his strength. The metal struck hard, and the hand pulled back with a hiss of pain. "You dare fight us?" a voice roared outside. "Do you know who you stand against, human?" Daniel's chest heaved. His fear burned into anger. "I don't care who you are," he shouted. "You're not taking her." The alien girl's eyes widened at his words. She whispered, "You mean it. You truly mean it." Before Daniel could answer, she pressed her glowing hand over his chest. A rush of warmth surged through him. His muscles felt stronger, his heartbeat steadier. It was as if her strength had poured into him. "What did you just do?" he gasped. "I shared the bond fully," she whispered. "Now you can fight with me, not alone." The door broke apart with a violent crack, and 3 shadowy figures stepped inside. Their faces were hidden behind masks, their bodies wrapped in dark armor. Their eyes glowed faintly, cold and merciless. Daniel raised the iron poker, feeling a strange energy running through his arms. The girl stood behind him, her glow stronger now. Together they faced the hunters who filled the doorway. "You should have surrendered," one hissed. "Now you will suffer with her." Daniel tightened his grip. His fear was still there, but something else had taken root. resolve. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for her too, for the bond that tied them. The hunters spread out, shadows stretching across the floor. The girl whispered behind him, her voice like steel wrapped in silk. This is only the beginning. If you stand with me now, you will never stand alone again. Daniel's heart pounded. The bond pulsed through him, stronger with every breath. The hunters had come for her, but now they would have to face him too. The battle was about to begin, and the Sento, a human who once lived in silence, was no longer just a man. He was part of something greater, something he could not escape. The hunters stepped into the cabin, their armor scraping against the broken door frame, their glowing eyes fixed on Daniel and the tiny alien girl. The air grew heavy, filled with the sound of their breathing. Daniel tightened his grip on the iron poker. The strange warmth from the bond still pulsed through him, steadying his fear. The girl stood close behind him, her glow brighter now, ready to act if he fell. One of the hunters raised his clawed hand, pointing straight at the girl. "You belong to us," the voice hissed. "The bond you made is forbidden. You have no right to choose him." Daniel stepped forward, surprising even himself. "She chose, and I won't let you take her." The hunters growled, their voices overlapping like echoes. "Then you will die with her." The first one lunged, its claw slashing through the air. Daniel swung the poker with all his strength. Sparks flew as metal struck armor. The hunter staggered back, but the second rushed forward, grabbing Daniel by the arm. The bond flared inside him, giving him the strength to twist free and slam the poker into its chest. The girl lifted her hands, whispering words in her own language. A soft wave of light burst from her palms, blinding the hunters for a moment. Their growls turned to snarls of frustration. "Run," she whispered, pulling at Daniel's arm. "We can't fight them all, not yet." Daniel hesitated, his heart racing. He wanted to fight, but he knew she was right. The hunters were too strong. His only chance was to escape with her. They rushed toward the back door, Daniel kicking it open with his boot. The cold night air hit them like ice. The forest stretched ahead, dark and endless. The hunters roared behind them, crashing through the remains of the cabin. Branches whipped against Daniel's face as they ran. The girl's small hand clung to his, her glow guiding their path through the shadows. The bond pulsed with every step, giving him strength to keep going even as his legs burned. The hunters followed, their heavy steps shaking the ground. Their glowing eyes flashed through the trees, closer and closer. Daniel's breath came ragged. "We can't outrun them forever," he gasped. The girl looked up at him, her eyes fierce. "Then we must outsmart them," she said. "There's an old tunnel nearby. If we reach it, they cannot follow easily." They darted down a slope, sliding over wet leaves. The sound of the hunters crashing through the forest grew louder. Daniel felt the ground shake as one leapt from a boulder behind them. The girl suddenly stopped and turned. Her hands flared with light again. A flash like lightning lit up the trees. The hunter staggered, blinded. Daniel grabbed her arm. "Come on," he urged. "Don't stop." At last they reached a rocky cliffside, hidden by thick vines. The girl pushed them aside, revealing a narrow opening. "In here," she whispered, pulling Daniel inside. The tunnel was dark, damp, and narrow. Daniel had to bend to move. His shoulders scraped against the stone walls. The girl moved quickly, her faint glow lighting the way. Behind them, the hunters roared. Their claws scratched against the rocks as they tried to force their way inside. But the tunnel was too narrow for their large armored bodies. Their voices echoed down the stone passage, promising vengeance. "You cannot hide forever," one growled. "The bond will be your doom." Daniel and the girl kept moving, the tunnel twisting deeper into the earth. The air grew colder, drops of water falling from the ceiling. Every sound made Daniel's nerves tighten. Finally, the passage widened into a small cavern. Daniel collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. The girl knelt beside him, her hand still holding his tightly. "You saved me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Yeah, I fought them when no one else would. And now, because of you, we escaped." Daniel shook his head, sweat dripping down his face. "We only barely made it. They'll keep coming, won't they?" The cavern was cold and damp. Water dripped from the ceiling in slow drops, echoing softly. Daniel sat with his back against the rough stone, his chest rising and falling with each heavy breath. The tiny alien girl sat beside him, her glow faint now, as if she had dimmed it to save her strength. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Only the sound of their breathing filled the silence. Outside the tunnel, the hunters' roars had faded into the night. but Daniel knew they would not stop searching. At last he turned his head toward her. "Who are you really?" he asked. His voice was steady, but his eyes searched hers for truth. "You keep talking about rights, bonds, and laws. But why do they want you so badly? What are you not telling me?" The girl lowered her head, her silver hair hiding her face. Her hands trembled in her lap. For the first time, Daniel saw her not as bold or defiant, but as fragile, scared, and tired. "I wasn't honest with you," she whispered. Her voice cracked slightly. "I am not just any girl from my people. I am their bloodline, the heir to the old throne." Daniel's eyes widened. "A princess?" She nodded slowly. "Yes. My name is Leora, daughter of the last ruling line. My people do not want me free. They want me gone, erased. Because I refuse to follow their command, I refuse to marry the one they chose." Daniel's mind spun. He rubbed his forehead, trying to process the weight of her words. A runaway alien princess had walked into his home, into his bath, and now the hunters chasing her were not just soldiers. They were executioners, sent to erase her from history. "They want you dead because you said no?" he asked, his voice low with disbelief. Her eyes lifted to his, shimmering with unshed tears. "Yes, my people are bound by old laws, laws that chain us to choices we never make ourselves. They said I was only a vessel, that I had no right to claim my life, but I wanted something more. I wanted freedom. I wanted to choose." Her voice broke on the last word. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He had lived his life with quiet freedom, alone but free. And now, here sat a girl who had risked everything just for the right to decide her own path. "You came to me because of that law you spoke of," Daniel said slowly. "The bond of water. Was that your way of defying them?" Leora nodded. "Yes. Once I shared water with you, the bond was sealed. It cannot be undone by them. It is the oldest law, even older than the throne itself. They hate it because it gives me a choice they cannot erase." Daniel leaned back against the wall, letting her words sink in. He had never wanted to be a hero, never wanted to be part of something greater than his quiet life. But now he was tied to her in a way deeper than he understood, and the hunters would never stop until they destroyed that bond. Leora reached for his hand, her fingers small and soft in his calloused palm. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to pull you into my fight. I only wanted to survive. I only wanted someone who would not turn me away." Daniel looked at her trembling hand in his. His instincts told him to push her away, to save himself. But the bond inside his chest pulsed again, strong and steady, reminding him that their lives were now intertwined. "You don't need to apologize," he said at last, his voice low but firm. "You made your choice. Now I've made mine too. If they want you, they'll have to go through me first." Leora's eyes widened, her lips parting in shock. No one had ever said such words to her before. She had always been a burden, a problem, or a prize to claim, but never someone worth protecting. Her tears finally spilled, glowing faintly in the dim light. She leaned closer, whispering, "Then you are more and my bond. You are my hope." Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. The weight of his decision pressed heavy, but so did the strength it gave him. He was no longer just a man alone in the forest. The cavern walls shook faintly as a distant rumble echoed through the tunnels. Daniel lifted his head, his muscles tense. Leora sat across from him, her glow faint but steady. Her eyes told him what his instincts already knew. The hunters were back, and they were closing in. "They found us," she whispered, her voice trembling but sharp. "They won't stop until they drag me back, or until we fight." Daniel rose to his feet, gripping the iron poker he had carried from the cabin. It was dented and scarred from the last clash, but it was still the only weapon he had. The bond pulsed inside him, a steady beat that kept his fear from swallowing him whole. "We can't just hide," he said firmly. "If we run forever, they'll catch us. It ends tonight." Leora's eyes widened, but instead of fear, there was respect in her gaze. She stood too, placing her glowing hand on his arm. "If you fight, then I fight with you. The bond makes us stronger together." A roar echoed down the tunnel, heavy footsteps pounding against the stone floor. Shadows spilled into the cavern entrance and 3 hunters emerged. Their armor gleamed in the dim light, their glowing eyes fixed on Leora like predators staring at prey. "Princess," one hissed, his voice filled with venom. "You dishonor the old ways, you will return, bound in chains, and this human will be nothing but dust beneath our boots." Daniel stepped in front of Leora, his voice steady. "You'll have to go through me first." The hunters snarled, spreading out to block every escape. One lunged forward, claws slicing through the air. Daniel swung the poker with all his strength. The bond surged inside him, guiding his arm. The strike landed true, sparks flying as metal struck armor. The hunter staggered, growling in pain. Another rushed from the side. Leora lifted her hands and whispered ancient words. A wave of light burst from her pal. Miss, striking the hunter's chest. The glow burned like fire against his dark armor, forcing him back. The cavern filled with chaos, growls, shouts, and the clash of stone and metal. Daniel fought with everything he had, each strike heavier than the last. He could feel Leora's strength feeding into him through the bond. Her light gave his muscles energy. Her voice steadied his heart. One of the hunters roared and swung his claw toward Daniel's head. At the last second, Daniel ducked, the claw tearing into the stone wall instead. Dust and rock rained down. Daniel thrust the poker upward, slamming it into the hunter's jaw. The creature stumbled, dazed. Leora cried out. A hunter had grabbed her by the arm, dragging her toward the tunnel. Daniel felt her pain through the bond, sharp and real. It was as if claws were raking across his own skin. With a roar, he sprinted and slammed into the hunter, breaking its grip. The bond flared between them, brighter than ever before. For a moment, Daniel and Leora moved as one, his strikes and her light weaving together, forcing the hunters back. "You cannot stop us," one growled, even as he faltered under their assault. "The bond will be your downfall, human. It will destroy you both." Daniel's breath came heavy, his arms shaking from the effort. "No," he spat. "The bond makes us stronger. It's not my downfall. It's my weapon." Leora's glow grew brighter, filling the cavern with blinding light. The hunters hissed and stumbled, shielding their eyes. Daniel seized the moment and swung the poker with all his might, knocking one to the ground. The cavern shook with their cries. But slowly, step by step, Daniel and Leora pushed them back toward the tunnel entrance. The hunters, once unstoppable shadows, now looked uncertain. At last, one hissed in rage. "This is not over, Princess. We will return with the full strength of the Order. You will not escape forever." At last, one hissed in rage. "This is not over, Princess. We will return with the full strength of the Order. You will not escape forever." With that, the hunters retreated into the tunnel, their voices fading into the dark. The cavern fell silent except for Daniel's heavy breathing and the faint drip of water. He dropped the poker to the ground, his hands shaking. His body was exhausted, but the bond inside him burned bright, strong, alive. Leora moved closer, her eyes wide with wonder. "You stood against them," she whispered. "You fought for me when no one else dared. Tonight, we won." Daniel leaned back against the wall, trying to catch his breath. He knew the fight wasn't over, not by far, but for the first time, he believed they had a chance. The battle for freedom had begun, and together, bound by water and will, they would face whatever came next. The cavern was quiet after the hunters fled. Daniel leaned against the wall, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. His arms ached from swinging the iron poker. His body felt bruised and beaten. Yet through the bond, a steady warmth flowed, keeping him from collapsing. Leora sat beside him, her glow soft now, not bright and fierce as before. Her eyes shimmered as she looked at him. "You risked everything," she whispered. "You fought for me when you could have given me up." Daniel exhaled slowly, his gaze on the floor. "I didn't plan this," he said. "But when they came for you, something in me couldn't let them win. It felt wrong, like I'd be betraying more than just you if I stepped aside." Leora's small hand brushed against his, and through the bond, he felt the truth of her heart. Fear, relief, and something deeper, a growing trust. But even in that fragile moment of peace, Daniel's mind churned with doubt. The hunters had retreated, not fallen. They would return, and next time they would not come. Alone, he turned his head toward her, his voice heavy. "What happens if I keep protecting you? They won't stop, Leora. They'll come with more soldiers, maybe armies, and I'm just one man. Leora looked at him steadily. You are not just one man, she said softly. You are my bond, my choice. That makes you more than you believe. Her words struck deep, yet Daniel's thoughts darkened. What if she was wrong? What if his choice doomed them both? He had spent his life in quiet solitude, safe but empty. Now he stood on the edge of war, tied to a girl hunted by her own people. The silence stretched, heavy and uncertain. Then Leora lowered her head, her voice trembling. If you wish to walk away, I will not stop you. The bond cannot be broken, but you can turn your back on it. You can leave me to face them alone. Her words cut him like a blade. The bond pulsed, echoing her pain through his chest. Daniel's hands tightened into fists. He knew leaving her was possible, but the very thought made his stomach twist. He rose slowly, walking to the cavern's entrance. Outside, the forest stretched wide and endless. The night wind carried faint whispers, the hunters still out there, waiting, searching. He stood there, staring into the dark, weighing the two paths before him. One path was simple: abandon her, return to his cabin, rebuild the door, and pretend this night never happened. He could return to solitude, no hunters, no bond, no danger. But the other path meant standing beside her, facing enemies stronger than anything he had ever imagined, risking his life for a girl he had only just met. Leora's voice carried softly behind him. Every human before you turned me away. They feared the hunters. They feared my bond. But I believed you were different. That belief may be foolish, but it is all I have left. Outside in the forest, the hunters whispered their plans. The final battle was near. The galaxy would soon learn of the human who chose to stand against them for the sake of a tiny alien princess, and the choice Daniel made would change everything. The first light of dawn slipped through cracks in the cavern, painting the stone walls with pale silver. Daniel sat awake, leaning against the rock. His body was exhausted, bruised, and sore, but his mind would not let him rest. Beside him, Leora slept lightly, her small frame curled under a torn blanket. Her glow had dimmed to almost nothing, as if she was hiding herself even in her dreams. Daniel's thoughts twisted in circles. He had chosen her, chosen the bond, chosen to fight against shadows far stronger than him. Yet now, as morning arrived, the weight of that decision pressed heavy. What did it mean for his life, his future, his very existence? Leora stirred, opening her bright eyes. For a moment she looked fragile, almost like a lost child. Then she sat up, her gaze steady. They will come again, she whispered. The hunters do not stop, not until their prey is broken. Daniel nodded. I know, he said quietly, but they'll find we're not so easy to break. Her lips curved into the faintest smile, but her eyes held sorrow. You've tied your fate to mine, Daniel. You could have walked away, yet you didn't. That choice will change everything, not just for you, but for the galaxy. Daniel frowned. The galaxy? Leora lowered her head, her silver hair falling across her shoulders. My people believe the bond of water is sacred, older than any throne. They erased it from their lives long ago because it gave freedom. It gave power to choose. I brought it back, and by choosing you, I defied every law they cling to. Daniel rubbed his tired eyes. So what happens now? She reached out, her glowing hand brushing against his. Now, word will spread. They already whisper about us. A human who defied the hunters. A bond that cannot be broken. Some will hate us, some will fear us. But others may rise and believe. Daniel's chest tightened. He had never thought of himself as a symbol. He was just a man living in the forest, fixing his cabin, trying to survive. But now, by sheltering a girl who had walked into his bath, he had become something greater. Something he did not ask for yet could not deny. Before he could answer, a sound echoed faintly through the tunnel, not the heavy steps of hunters, but a softer hum. Leora stood quickly, her eyes narrowing. Not enemies, she whispered. Messengers. From the tunnel entrance, figures appeared, cloaked and hooded. Their voices were calm, not filled with the growls of the hunters. Princess, one said, bowing deeply. Word has reached us. We saw the light of your bond. We come not to take you, but to follow you. Leora's breath caught, her hand tightening around Daniel's. You see, she whispered to him, Already the world is changing. The bond is no longer just ours. It is a spark, and sparks grow into fire. Daniel looked at her, his brow furrowed. And me? What am I in all this? She turned to him, her eyes shining with emotion. You are the first human to be chosen, the one who stood when all others turned away. You are my bond, my shield, my proof that freedom can be real. Together, we are more than prey, more than fugitives. We are the beginning of something new. Daniel exhaled slowly, the truth sinking in. He had not asked for destiny, but destiny had found him. He squeezed her hand firmly. Then let's face it together. Whatever comes, I won't let go. Leora's tears glimmered in the dawn light. She leaned closer, resting her head against his chest. Then the galaxy will remember this day, she whispered. The day a human and an alien stood as one, not by chains, but by choice. Outside, the forest awoke with birdsong. The hunters still roamed, shadows still stalked, dangers still waited. But deep within the cavern, something stronger had been born, a bond of law, not of fear, but of will, and with it, a new beginning for both human and alien alike.